Hitler and he's traveled back in time, he's hit by the realization that he has only hooves that cannot successfully fire a gun and kill Hitler, and his mission fails. This is Erik Leavitt's story. So, it's a funny premise, but to me, the meaning is simple. We are all called upon to do incredible things at some point in time, like time moves. And though we may largely be successful, there will always be occasions when failure is inevitable. Erik's poetry, fiction and nonfiction, he'll be reading poetry tonight, is about these simple human failures, their destruction of the self, but also what it takes to rebuild. Erik's heart, his warm and genuine empathy for the human condition is always apparent, even when he's talking about time moose, Sasquatch, or cannibalism. When I read his thesis manuscript, I remember talking to a friend back home, and I said, "This is really good." This is Erik Leavitt.
Do this action, which is always grotesque and ends up far too loud?
Yeah.
Excellent. Far too loud. No. There are a few ways people get banned here from Satchel. Me genitally assaulting a microphone if you want to proceed. So let's try and avoid that if possible. So April brought up at least 2 of 3 things which are going to appear in this discussion this evening. I am going to talk about moose, a single moose, and there's going to be some cannibalism, but I haven't fit Sasquatch in here, so I do apologize for that. So what I'm reading from tonight is a selection from my thesis, my master's thesis, Vanishing Twin Syndrome, and I guess what you need to understand about this initially is that right now, this is the story of Tycho Brahe, which is also somewhat the story of invention. You can see Tycho here. Because if there's no other way that you really need to understand Tycho Brahe, is that he was an inventor. He's born in 1546 to Dutch aristocracy. He trains to be a lawyer until he sees a supernova, which makes him switch over to become an astronomer. And his life is filled with this sort of strange mythology. It's in 1566 that he gets drunk at a Christmas party and gets in a fight with another math professor, and his nose is cut off. And he makes himself a prosthetic nose that he glues to his face. He also, in 1580, he lives with both a clairvoyant dwarf and a moose, which famously drinks its weight in beer and falls down a flight of stairs and dies. There are alcohol problems with the Brahe estate as years later, as Tycho was actually eating dinner, and he would eat dinner with his clairvoyant dwarf, Jeff, kind of at his hip, whispering up basically prophecies about people who were sitting around the table. He was too polite to actually leave the table after drinking a profound amount of his bladder split, leading to his death. So, to understand Tycho Brahe and the story of Tycho Brahe, you have to understand the idea of supernovas and excess and this paranoia of not understanding the world and trying to invent things to try and make it make sense. So this is from a Walter Bob lecture in 1945. A white dwarf bursts over Herban in 1572, an old star, collapsing to a sphere the size of the Earth. In binary systems, the denser dwarf cannibalizes its brother, adding to its own mass. It exceeds its limits. The star rips apart nova, Tycho called it. Though modern astronomy reserves this term for less violent explosions. They are rare in one galaxy. There is one in 1054. There is another, Tycho's, and the next, Kepler's, in 1604. There have been none since. There is no example in the star heralding Christ's birth. Tycho ruled it had to be much nearer the Earth to lead anyone, anywhere. Distance is important. Measurement. 1572's moved in no relation to other stars. Radio astronomers agree. They place it far beyond the simple orbit of the Milky Way. The story of its inspiration reads like a Christmas pageant. He's stumbling home from a party, hating his law degree, when a pinata of light breaks open across the night. Immeasurable. More than just a blip on the zodiac. Nova, he called it. After that, the cosmos was too perfect for us not to be at the center. Everything was slide rule, longitude, latitude, giving everything an X marks the spot. But so much of life is impossible. And like the poem said, the star is a cow's eye, the sky a palace in ruin, speckled in its own nova, new from the Latin, and shuddering immeasurably away. This was not Tycho's fault. He was drunk, sashaying the ballroom for a row over astral trade. Some professor's glove comes across his face, and it's a midnight duel. And in the dark, it's his blade that snips the hole from Tycho's nose. Tycho etched a new one from silver like a steak knife, like a circus tent telescoping up, right there, in the middle of his face. Vanity. Even his painters failed to mark it more than a rat's whisker along his bridge, capture him massaging it with scented oils. No hooks or piano wires suspended it, though. Glue hung it to his face like a planet. Everything, the law of the planets. Everything hooking punches around the sun. Tycho and his nose, two binary stars circling, pacing after each other, so near they can't be split with the naked eye. So the story of Tycho Brahe is also, coincidentally, the story of metaphors. It's the story of looking at a single thing from 2 or 3 or 100 different directions and understanding it in a different way each time. When Anne Carson talks about metaphor, she says that it's the process of the brain making a mistake and at the same time the brain realizing that it's making a mistake, which puts us in this very odd circumstance of a single brain both living in a right world and a wrong world. And the aspect of metaphoring is also the aspect of defining things, or trying to define something which can't be defined. It's comparing one thing to another thing, but they don't make sense. So when I tell this story about Tycho Brahe, it makes me think of other stories. In particular, one that keeps coming up is the story of this dream of my father, who's dead, who comes to Duluth, Minnesota to try and find me while I'm sleeping one night. And he walks into my back door. He's like I used to see him when he used the bathroom essentially cross through the hall to use the bathroom at night. And he was sort of a sad old man. He's really awful underwear, which is sort of shameful to think about. But to understand the story of Tycho Brahe, you need to understand this story as well as the story of family and the story of somebody being lost and trying to get home, or being lost and trying to say something they can't. So speaking of lost, there's a potential I'm going to lose the audience trying to do this. So we're going to try and do something of audience participation. I have here Richard Dawson as cards. And what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to read a part of this poem, and then you're going to repeat. I'll pause, and you'll repeat the last word I said, which will be conveniently written on said sheet. If those of us remember that Bob Dylan video, same principle. Yeah. The benefit of being from Duluth, Minnesota is you can claim any sort of heritage of Bob Dylan you want, no matter how sort of absurd it is. I'm ancient, that's because Dylan told me to. So if I hold this like this, can everyone see these? Except for the fact that there's no writing on them, and I don't know if you can do that. Done. Wait your turn. I am lost. I am lost, Father, behind the face of your teenage photograph and the face that comes to me in dreams I never dream. I don't remember what you look like. I never dream. All anger is polyphonic. Measure breaks at the same time it harmonizes with itself. It creates a new measure. This is a sickness. I am lost. Between your faces and the moment when you were young and no sadness has drawn itself on you with a blunt crayon. My sadness draws itself on the world with a blunt crayon. I live like a disease. I eat the space around me. My air is the dead trotter smell of dead pigs that cut apart in the soon breed. I repeat this like an invocation. I say I love you like an invocation. This is not for you, Father. This is in sleep. The night you come with his awful, naked feet like bacon raw. His screams the language of the dead. I never dream. I never dream. I do not. And we hit the infinite loop. I do not know the language of the dead. His stomach naked and swollen, and his screams to me and is trying to understand, and I am asleep. I am asleep and has asked me to wake, and I fail. I remember Dylan, he just tossed him. I don't know if I get to do that. The other inherent problem is this involves more and more props as the evening goes on. So this is sort of the carrot top culture experience. Lying is the family art. I forget and I reteach it of myself. I'm from a family of repeaters. We let our teeth rot out to get new acrylic teeth, big as butter squares. Lying is a family art, and it makes a second, smaller family. One who sets up a card table next to the big Thanksgiving table and eats off plastic plates and throwaway knives. We've learned to believe as fast as we can lie. We've learned not to make eye contact while we eat. I don't know if this is a lie. To be sure, sometimes I repeat. Sometimes I repeat myself. I come from a long line of repeaters. I have to pull my fingers into my palm until my knuckles white. Little squares of white. The card table sits square at the end of the adult table. It's slightly lower. The tablecloth dangles, limp along its edge. If I don't pay attention, I buck the table with my knees or lean on a weak leg. Ignore it, and Uncle warns from the big table. They can take it. The legs can take it. All right, this last one, you're going to be solo on these. So. There are different ways I make my father die. Thank you.
Suicide.
Aneurysm.
Suicide.
Failed career.
Suicide.
Failed marriage.
Suicide.
Failure or loss of the son. I picture his body dead before it's dead, lulled in the lazy boy, marinating in the 10 o'clock news. In his rhetoric, Aristotle warns against straw men, building them to knock down. Where no opponent exists, the rhetorician puppets the hypothetical argument, then, in a flourish, rebuffs. This, he stresses, is the illusion of victory. Proper illusions require spectators, ringing up from them like the lines on a topographic map, marking how far we've slid down the peak to where the oxygen is richer and easier to breathe. This is what my father taught me, how to test a knife sharp by shaving away arm hairs, how to aim clean with a hammer, how to sink a nail, how not to blink at the sound of a hammer, how not to cut off my thumbs, to use a table saw to make something out of the nothing wood he lined along the garage, to line an even line I could not draw, to listen for the sound of the motor straining, a low cat noise, a whisper in German, and how to keep it stressed enough in the too far where the engine shorts but the saw keeps spinning, how to work a machine, how to stop when the power is lost. Lost. 308, we have suspect westbound on I-35, suspect on foot, white male sighted, crossing Mississippi Bridge toward Minneapolis. Officer reports Julian-manic episode, unresponsive to officers, recovered no ID, no prior warrant, no conclusive dilation of the eyes, pupil Officers approach suspect, reports leaving Ramsey County on foot, going home, entered squad car unrestrained. Officers in charge ceased identifying question. Subject apologized. Suspect waiting to be contained. Suspect reported as stating home address, home phone number, name, lost, returning home. So, to understand the story of Tycho Brahe, you need to understand the story of a supernova, which requires me to officially become an AV nerd by reading poetry. So the story of a supernova is both the story of something being created by cannibalizing itself. And we can kind of take a look at that in this image. The woman on the right-hand side is Urania, the muse of astronomy who Tycho dedicates one of his books to. And on the left, there is AGNI, I believe his name is, who is one of the titans who has 1,000 eyes, who's constantly staring out at everything. And in a way, this is somewhat how the nova, as Tycho experiences it and describes at work, as something having to do with the body and something witnessing out in all directions at the same time. So this is from Principles and Practices of Embalming, 3rd edition, 1963. The brain resists complete combustion, but the body sparkles, the orbit a fizz of a soda straw. Then skin and hair at once scorch, char, and burn. There's a popular idea early in the cremation process that heat flexes the trunk so the body sits up, bursting the lid of the coffin. This has not been observed personally. There is no data to scatter plot. There is destruction of the soft tissue, the skull soon devoid of covering. Then the bones of the limbs appear. The abdomen contents burn slowly, and the lungs more slowly still. When the vault of the skull appears and has broken away, the brain is a dark, fused mass. The spine becomes visible. Viscera disappears. In the flames, foam lights. From Principles and Practices of Embalming, 4th edition, 1967. Kept under the right conditions, the tissues of the body possess some measure of immortality. Theoretically, in this way, it is possible to grow a chicken heart the size of the world. Imagine the 100-watt light bulb nursing the heart with an eyedropper. Day 13, it's the size of a yellow onion. We must accept the statistically anomalous, the possibility of drawing a glass from the Black Sea without one polluting grain of salt. A heart the size of the world with binary R's, oceans would pull to its new gravity. The heart might encircle us with the motorcade of itself, the moon arterial, rinse and spitting the light, its pucker brief as time. There's sort of a nice physical break between these. So to understand the story of Tycho is to understand the story of metaphors. To understand the story of metaphors is to understand the story of parallaxal and translation. Parallaxal is the process of looking at something from a number of different vantage points and trying to understand it. This happens a lot in astronomy with the celestial bodies, watching them as they mark their course through the cosmos. And this is the method which Tycho Brahe got exceptionally good at, using only the naked eye. And it's how he tried to define the world, and unfortunately how he failed, because this is inevitably a problem of translation. One of the problems with translation is by moving one thing to a second thing, we don't keep the original. It becomes something new in the way that the old star, which collapses, becomes a supernova or a new star or a black hole. And what we're left with is these sort of flashes of motion trying to understand something. So what I've tried to do in these next couple of films is to try and create a parallaxal understanding of a subject. And in ways that can be the parallaxal understanding of trying to create a language of anxiety, which is different than the regular language, which I'm sure we're there. Sometimes it's like winter and the quiet swells like a fat lip. You're inside, but you don't want to be. So your mother dresses you, long underwear and bunchy snow pants, your scarf tucked, boots triple knotted around your feet. Finally, it's out the door and your joints go gauzy. The wind punches through you like a stapler. Maybe if you fell down, the snow would zip its sleeping bag over you. It's getting cold. Maybe a street light switches on. Maybe not. Night smears the sky, the whole beaten city, and the snow cinches in like a belt.
Sometimes
There must have cold.
it's like
It
winter,
must have marched. It must have jammed
And
the
quiet
hands in the
swells.
pockets, fall off the bridge. Snow
Like a
falls
fat
into
whip.
the river and into the more snow, and snow breaks the river.
You're
You can't
inside.
see where the snow goes, and sometimes simmers.
you don't wanna
It's
be.
supposed to in its stomach, the warm. Pick
So
up
your
the
mother
honk
dresses
on the
you.
lay on the tongue and the horn and the mouth full of
underwear,
hummingbirds,
snow
and its
pants.
luggage empty on the bed. If cars pass
Your
under
scarf
dust, it means
tucked.
something. It says voice, can't make so, humming bird voice, and can't bird the
Boots.
stomach and bird the heart and
Triple
bird the
knotted.
wind stop, and it's hurt, its body, its
Around
need
your
to move,
feet.
it's know what's best and best for everyone, hair singeing, everyone
Finally, it's out the
burnt,
door.
hair, voice oil song, crack,
And your
200 birds
joints
humming, 200
go
birds humming, and the
gauzy.
body beat 200 more, and the body beat a sewing machine, electric pedal down,
Wind
and
punches
it's everywhere, the thread
through
that
like
his
a
mother
stapler.
keeps in her bedroom, and his body beat up
In your
and
house,
down,
the light
his
goes
eyes
out.
full of black and beating out, its blackness,
You know
a
that
chin
nobody's
strap,
watching.
a heart stab, a heart fist gripping and gripping.
If you fell down, maybe snow would zip its sleeping bag over you. Maybe a street light switches on, maybe not. Night smears the sky, the whole beaten city, and snow cinches in like a belt.
Double underlined in the community room book. If you could see from inside a dead person, you could still see, but you couldn't operate the muscles of the eye, so you couldn't focus. You couldn't turn your head or your eyeballs. All you could do was wait until something passed by, frozen, waiting and waiting. No turning your head. Wait for something to pass by. Dead eye. Mark the arc minutes, arc seconds of travel. First, make the armillary, each astral sphere a hoop, a wishbone of granite holding the unsplittable. Somewhere, a star has exploded. Somewhere, we're watching a star collapse, which has already collapsed. Crunch the numbers if you can't figure out the moment things burst apart, the speed at which things drift from the core. And draw back tethers into a single causal point. If you could determine what went wrong the moment things fall apart, if you could figure out the equation, you could pull it all back to a unity. If you could fix things, if you could fix things. Mercy. Father's hand wraps over mine. This is how you play mercy, and squeeze. Each finger pains down. If you could see from inside a dead person, he says, you couldn't muscle the eye, couldn't focus, you'd be frozen, something passing by. Mercy, I learned to squeak. Ask me, show me again. So, we'll switch. This is the astrolabe. So, one of the inherent problems that Tycho ran into is that in 1572, he saw a new star and then consequently it disappeared. This was the nova, first exploding in the sky for about a month and then turning into a black hole, which is beyond his understanding. This is strangely what drew Tycho both to astronomy and astrology. He believed that, he did believe in astrology, in this idea that we lived within these dozens of glass spheres, and that everything in these glass spheres was perfect clockwork, and that nothing could be created and destroyed. And it was so perfect, in fact, that it would help determine life on Earth through its simple perfection, sort of like the motions of the tides. So, in some ways, he believed that the stars made him do things, and there were things he didn't understand, and this made him paranoid. And this paranoia may or may not have been justified. He did in fact have enemies, and he did in fact see things that were there one minute and missing the next. This is again from Walter Baade from this lecture, Uraniborg in the Brahe Estates in 1955. And he talks about the great mural quadrant. The next slide here. And this is an example of Tycho trying to recreate the world. Around the rim is the actual tool with which he uses to measure the cosmos, but behind he paints a picture of himself measuring it. Around the edges is the cosmos, so in fact Tycho is the world. Fear, said the peasants, that gold-nosed necromancer, all night scrubbing Teflon off the sky with his grease pencil and his star chart. The sun rose and his shadow stretched less and less human. The peasants had never seen the mural map of the Great Quadrant, cutaway of Uraniborg, alchemical lab boiling in the basement, observatory gawked up to the sky, and at the geocenter, above his subjects, was Tycho, finger pointing out the window. If they drew a line down his arm, it would fire out past the lifting sun, past the world he bent brass bands around. It would travel past where the artist painted, out into the darkness, the yet to be measured, the undefined. Tycho Brahe from his manuscript for the Practica Astronomer. I know rat hairs grease my food. Someone has packed the air with microbes, hidden forces, practicing their constant judo on us. Tycho's a genius. Why not yank out his chair while he tries to sit, they say. Let's pry his chewing gum out from under his desk and swallow his sacred spit. I open my home to Norwegians and they steal my silverware. Magna cum laude undog my books. The universe understands betrayal. Sun scrapes over the stars and all of a sudden they're skewed. Someone has skewed them, and where I look for them is wrong. Sanity scenario number 2, Mercury. Mercury licks skin, licks brain nerves, and where it licks, less is left behind. It rots in the mouth, and in the mouth the teeth. Sweats through the hair, and the hair sweats out in clumps. It swells the meat with sweat, sweats the instrument with gold. Tycho paints the quadrant, the prosthetic nose with gold, and up the vapors quicksilver through the membrane of his eye. Pillow the hair in clumps, and its line of drool on his pillow black. Mercury is the messenger god, the thief. Greeks name Mercury the morning star and the evening star, both of which are wrong. Tycho's notebooks are filled with stars he named, shapes he drew between them, conspiracies of stars, the arrows traced and the way they pointed. Maybe Tycho's sick, and Mercury his medicine. Maybe his students feeding him with a stir spoon. His students hate him. His students tear pages from charts and fold them into his back pocket. Maybe his students strike mercury into his drinking glass, and when Tycho swallows, rots the gums, rots the mouth, the skin sweats and silvers, the tongue black like a coat hook, and above his grave, granite Tycho pointing out, his statue in the model of the mural quadrant, his face looking away, all maybes. Maybe we zoom him, grind the backhoe through the earth and rib scratch. Underneath rat bones and nose silver. On the table lay, we lab through the snap bones, drill to the metal of them maybe, to the poison maybe, carbonate and grind to powder, his cremains sharp as the arrowheads. So, finally, to understand the story of Tycho, we need to understand the story of being lost, which I think about in a metaphorical way. When I was back in Minnesota this last winter, first time I'd been back in about a year, my parents had gotten this OnStar GPS system, which is sort of fantastic because you plug it into your dashboard. It's this polite woman's voice kind of commanding you where to go, and it takes a lot of pressure off of your terribly sort of lost in the general sense like I am. You just sort of let this kind of polite Englishwoman talk to you like your conscience because my parents chose the English setting and more authority. Now, when I went back home to Minneapolis, my parents lived, of course, in Minneapolis where the I-35 bridge collapsed. So whenever I was sort of transiting around, there would be these moments where the GPS was working fantastically, and then I would start going toward the black hole where this bridge collapsed, and the GPS would just have me slowly circle it like a buzzard, which was incredibly disconcerting and intensely frustrating because you would stop and drive away for maybe half a mile, and it would keep whispering these things, but just like wrong, 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 turn around and go back. And this got me sort of thinking about what I must look like to people who would be watching outside of this. That they would know that I was essentially traveling around with this tiny voice telling me what to do. And I would sort of look like a maniac who was stalking this destruction area. And it got me thinking about the Greek concept of daimonia, which is translated both as demon and conscience. It's a voice that whispers in the back of your head and tells you how to do things. So this is something I'm trying to think about in this last piece, and this is also a piece you get to be involved in. So take out your brochures. I suppose this is probably as close as I'll ever get to my Catholic upbringing and asking everyone to read from their hymnals. But I am offering you the chance to read along from your hymnal if you so desire. I should start with page says 1. This is also a very sort of kindergarten moment where I watch and see where everyone has broken their graham crackers evenly into line and you're all sitting quietly on your carpet squares paying attention. Emergency broadcast signal. Darkness, a chin strap, a heart stab, a heart fist gripping and undripping. A shadow slurring across the lap. Window, the soft cells of snow, like the dark cells of snow softly. Test data suggests patient has serious problems with his thinking. Rorschach protocol indicates schizoid features. His basic response style screening out environmental factors. Said factors are therefore unavailable. Potential misconceptions of himself and his environment. Self-awareness is limited. Processing style is very rigid. Individuals similar in profile fail to learn from problem solving and therefore enact the same errors over and over. The hand has no desire to touch the face where shaveless or razorless. Hand errors, pill calls, someone calls, pill calls, and the nurse desk to open mouth like a negative. Fill it, pill says, sleep, and the body nods, chin numbs where the hands touch, with a scratch nail to blood, an afterthought. Goal number 1, to call a counselor or health professional when I am in danger of overwhelming irrational thought. First they sleep you, then they bed you, shake you to unwake, name you, repeat you to unsleep, walk you to doctor and indoctor you, indoctrination, indoctor outpatient, he tooth mouth and check the gums with a finger, he soft the name you on soft focus you, hello you, how do you feel today you say, and they pen you saying. Camera you in sleep and they name it. They camera you food, you chew mouth, and they put their hand on your neck and they make you swallow. You see you mother talk, the nurse, mother names you form behind stab glass, nurse glass, pill desk, sign desk, nurse talk, sign form, doctor talk, sign form, talk, mother talking, talk glass, unword talk, her mouth a chew, her face a blister, and mother hair she diaper and she sealess and drive out the window. She drive and no one talk full, no one disappear full, the mouth an owl pellet and bone full, the rat-shaped bones double wrapped, the rib knots untangle it, and hand against hand like holding, handshake your hand with holding. Patient describes people whispering in the halls. Claims he hears his name within the 24 hours prior to admission. 2 separate individuals call the police. Officers discovered patient yelling at cars in an inappropriate fashion. Post-Juliomania, patient failed to exhibit erratic behavior as done outside the hospital. Freak molestations, his speech self-described as gibber. Patient admits this is somewhat unusual. Tell me, O muse of Janus Bridgemaker, liveless in constellations, who double-ringed Saturn, his face doubling behind his face, watcher of the bridge crosser and the bridge crossing, one face talks and the back face cannot hear, one face talks at the same time. Tell me, Diasporus, the never crossing, the half talker from each edge and middle no one, bi-face where eyes touch coterminous and sights touch and cross, diandra moiepen musa polotropon, untranslatable, one mouthing while the other whispers, one whispers while the other eyes to see untranslatable, one standing with the other eyes peripheral, and when looks mistake. Goal number 2, to schedule counseling sessions on a weekly basis. A dictation is contained in the patient's inpatient chart in which he describes his chief complaint, history of present illness, past psychiatric history, and initial diagnostic assessment. Please refer to this dictation for a description of the events leading to the hospitalization. The Nova heart to blistering spider egg in my sick home homesick, and the wallward fuck chair thumps against my room. The neighbor thump, they fuck chair, and his hiss voice go, 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 unwhispered. And the strap doctor, the strap a chest, my chest like a cross to the lifting board, to siren car, strap the sick chest, giggled and acheful. Test form number 2, sick as in heat. Trace the finger on the wrist in the shape of sick. Record here. Strap hands, the ambulance hands to the hospital and away, the belt away, the shoes away, the switchboard and the cover bed tied nooseful, says the body snap-necked, says the body question mark with curl, the noose figurated to the doorknob, over door to the neck, and feet dangle chair, wobble, feetward out, and N-O strap hands say, away the cover sheets, and away the heart fist gripping. Trace the heat spot on the belly and where the body went smaller when the breath went. The Nova Star burst, the Nova Heart, cellophane bunched, and my skin shed, cold skin, and my all right here, hand closed on, hand on chest counts 6, 7. Everything is going to be just fine. 8, 9, 10. He denies severe panic-like anxiety, choking sensations, feelings of derealization. During some episodes, diaphoresis and cold flushing sensations. He denies dysphoric moods and energy, crying episodes, or suicidal ideation. He repeatedly and firmly denies suicidal ideation. He denies experiencing pressured speech. He does not admit moderate ahedonia, mild decrease in self-esteem, and a mild increase in guilt. He denies hallucinations of auditory or tactile nature. He denies a history of somatic preoccupations, denies experiencing thought control. He has rather distinct ideas of persecution. On the top of the sheet, I want you to come up with some goals you have for when you're released. You can come up with these in your free time here in my office. I'll write these down. Use I will statements. One goal should be to call a counselor or health professional if you are in danger of overwhelming or irrational thought. Number 2, you need to schedule counseling sessions on a weekly basis. You need to make appointments with psychologists. That's number 3. You sign here at the bottom. Do you see that? Yes. Initial here. I sign below your name, next to the X. Tell me, muse, of the untranslatable verb of home of being pulled off course by twice-born Dionysus, god of contradictions. Tell me of Janus, whose mind cannibalized itself. Tell me of the hands need to pocket and the face to chap, of siren lights that color his face twice. A man crossed the Mississippi Bridge. A man walks home on the freeway and does not remember. Unremember him, muse, his way home that night. Tell me, O muse, of the man losing, of the man on the freeway shoulder so often driven home he thinks he knows the way. Tell me what he thinks he knows, muse. Tell me police. Tell me chortle and the stomach pull and the body shrink and go hard. Tell me cold and walk from city to city and leave, 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 and we will go, muse. Together we will go. Goal number 3, to make an appointment with a psychologist outside of the facility. He is alert and orient to day, date, month, and year. He is attentive without fluctuation, affect somewhat decreased in range. He is a bit unemotional, given the recent events of his life. He remembers 3 out of 3 objects in 5 minutes. He is pleasant and cooperative. Psychotic thought content suspected with themes of persecution. His gait is narrow-based and stable. His problem-solving ability is grossly intact. He very easily performs simple calculations and simple spelling exercises. Insight is fair. Judgment is fair. He denies suicidal ideas. Ask they the dark, and ask they again, and circle it. Ask they take me, then repeat home, mirror, highway, highway, home. Repeat hall whispers and who whispers and why safe, home, safe. No one outsider, unphoneful. They ask for commitment. I repeat them. I, being of sound-minded body, and sign where they X and X where they space. Ask me to report home and bathroom, dark room, unmirror. Window. Where the snow melt the window. Where outside snow, 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 snow. Where the window split and cold slits in and nights. The knock here, the ache room with the call phone and the knock door, and shiver the belly hard with the laugh. Hard at the throat, cough, raw, and then not hard at all, the wording then not here. Hard to the sleeve, the boot, and the home call, the ring, a double ring unanswered. Shake the home call, the door call, as it slams, locks. It never occurred to you to escape? Where would I go? Slip of the feet, laceless. Your testing indicates homeward inclinations. I can't leave. I don't know how to get home from here. In the past, though, you've responded to this inclination with irrational behavior. Before I knew how to get home, I had to not be where I was. Home was safer. These questions appear to make you anxious. Are they making you anxious? Carring the grandfather home, carring the tumble snow. Snow is the quiet, capital Q-U-I-E-T. Snow, the word eater. Shout knee-deep in storm snow, and the snow ghosts. Snow unsees us and unsees the street, the house across the street. Slip van where the snow unreds and blinkers unlights, and the high beams and white the van on scratch snow like it disappeared. Snow ghostless and homeless, vanished, snow split and scratch and whispered. Here the van tries to stop and keep sliding. Snow unreds the light, his foot pumping and beside each other into the whiteness, into the never home, the sliding. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Thanks again to our readers today, Erik Leavitt, Chris Klingbeil, performances by Jacob Powers on piano and Just Desperation. One announcement, actually I have 2 announcements. Third Thursday Jazz starts at 9 a.m. on the 21st. It's hosted by Ben Burdick and James Carl right here at Satchel's. And Thursday the 21st, that night, is also a good night for fiction. If you like fiction, come on down to the old campus at the sub in the lookout room. We're having Melanie Ray's Home at 7:30. So be sure to not miss that. And thanks again, everyone, for coming out.
Yeah, I was